reason why we call this service a blessing of animals. Animals are a blessing to us, aren't they? Especially when they are our pets. They give so much to us, and their love and devotion are usually completely unconditional. Maybe just one condition. Feed me and then I'll be happy. Today we acknowledge in some small way the importance of animals and pets in our lives. And we are reminded that our relationship with God must extend to include all of creation. We read in the first chapter of Genesis, God created every living creature that moves, of every kind, whether it walked or crawled or swam or flew. And God looked at what God created and thought, that's good. And in the Colossians reading today, we heard that in God all things in heaven and on earth were created, through him and for him. When one of the non-human creatures becomes our pet, they bring their own unique presence to a household. As a cat person, I have known the total devotion and loyalty a cat can display, and the comfort that they can bring when they just curl up on your lap. If people ever wonder if animals or our pets feel as humans do, then we just need to see an animal alongside someone who is sick or in trouble. They just know, and they know that the best, even if the only thing that they should do is to stay alongside and cuddle up. And if you have ever seen an animal hurt or in pain or really sick, there is no doubt whatsoever they are aware of how they're feeling. So whether we have a cat or a dog, a bird, or guinea pigs, or a snake, whatever our pet, they become part of the household and are dependent upon us to provide them adequate food and water, and for some pets, appropriate exercise. Animals are just not put on earth to be our pets though. Some animals provide food for us, other than for those of us who are vegetarian, of course. Animals help on farms by rounding up sheep or herding cattle. Animals assist people in special need, like guide dogs. And animals bring great joy to folk in aged care who are often deprived of some of the more normal, homely things of life. However, there are some animals we are perhaps best to avoid. My surfing-mad stepson now has a heightened awareness of sharks when surfing, but acknowledges the ocean is theirs, and sharks form an important part of the hierarchical structure of marine life. We just wouldn't want to make one a pet. There are, of course, other non-human creatures that require us human creatures to make sensible decisions. I mean, if I see a suspicious spider, then I'm afraid the spider comes off second best. That said, animals in their various representations are an integral part of our natural environment and way of life, and it is good to recognise that and to honour them. These popularly held blessings of animals and pet services are in recognition of St. Francis of Assisi, whose feast day is on the 4th of October. His love of all creatures became one of his hallmarks. There are stories of him preaching to birds, flowers, cornfields, forests, stones, everything. Of taming a wild wolf and having rabbits and fish obey him. That, combined with St. Francis's other passions, led him to become the patron saint of animal lovers, of peacemakers and ecologists. He's also associated with important works of mercy to the poor and the marginalised. Much can be said about St. Francis, but my instruction was to keep this short, so let me just share a few insights. So he was born in Italy in 1182, just to set the context, and he was born into a very prosperous family. As a young adult, he had quite a profound experience when, in a dilapidated chapel in Italy, he heard Jesus speak to him from the cross. "Francis, rebuild my church, for you can see it is in ruins." Initially, Francis misunderstood God and began to physically restore the church in which he was praying. He apparently sold a bale of silk from his father's warehouse to help fund the repairs, causing his father to become absolutely furious. So much so, his father disinherited and disowned Francis, who in turn renounced his father's wealth. It is said that Francis returned everything he had to his father, including his clothes, and walked away naked. From that time on, Francis devoted himself to poverty and serving the poor. Along the way, he gathered a group of followers, and throughout their missionary travels in Italy and beyond, they sought only to urge people to turn from worldly ways to the way of Christ. His preaching had a constant theme of simplicity and poverty, no doubt hoping to show through his own life how one could rely on the providence of God for all that was necessary. But Francis never ever saw himself as deprived, because he saw the simple things of creation with the eye of one whose heart had found the source of all this beauty, God the Creator. Now, of course, we can't all be St. Francis in the sense of relinquishing all our money and possessions and going about helping people with nothing but a shirt on our back. If God calls you to do that, well and good. But there are other ways in which we can be like St. Francis. For example, Francis was able to do all he did by staying in touch with that which was at his very centre, Jesus Christ. Everything he did, everything he understood, everything that gave him motivation and passion and desire came from God, whom Francis always knew was at the very centre of his being. So St. Francis shows us that this continual prayer journey into the heart of self, to the heart of God, is what truly transforms us and empowers us and enables us. And when we understand God, understand our faith in this way, then God is never out there, up in heaven somewhere. God is within us. Perhaps one encouragement we can take from St. Francis is that he didn't always get everything right. He didn't always correctly understand what God was trying to tell him. As he went about his ministry, he would experiment with different things, and if it didn't work, he'd try another way. Sometimes we aren't absolutely sure what the next step in life will be, whether personally or as a faith community. But we need to be bold and adventurous and try things. If they don't quite work out the way we thought they should or hoped, then we try something else, or a different way of achieving what we believe is meant to happen. It is faithfulness, striving to live the way of Christ, that is far more important than getting the actual steps of doing that right. Now, it's fairly well accepted, although there's some debate still, but it is accepted that Francis did not write the hymn, once attributed to him, "Make me a channel of your peace," although it absolutely encapsulates Francis's life and all that he did. But whether he did or he didn't, I think we could all do worse than live by the song's message. To sow love where there is hatred, bring pardon where there is injury, bring faith where there is doubt, hope into despair, light into darkness, and joy into sadness. And we could also do worse than to follow St. Francis's rule, to value all God's creatures, human and non-human, and indeed to value, respect and look after all of God's creation, especially the environment, which so desperately needs the best of our efforts at the moment. The Lord be with you.